Alright, welcome to the introduction to Teams Mayhem. This is going to be an overview of all the components as well as how to set up the game to get ready to play. So we've got a bunch of different components as you can see on the table here. I'm going to start actually with these guys off the table, which are player boards. So different colors, all of them are the same shape. You'll notice that the portal on each board is at the same location. Each player gets one of these 4x8 boards to start. So that we'll need as many as you have players there for that. Then we're going to show you a 2-player game to start. 4-player is a pretty easy transition. This will just make it easier to fit everything in for our video. So we've got 16 blue pieces and 16 orange pieces. You'll notice there's a variety of different shapes. So these are pawns, little frogmen, and then you've got a king with the axe and the shield and a queen, raiders, battle mages, knights. So you've got a few different options, and I'll get into what they do and how they work and all that stuff a little bit later. But you've got the same number of pieces for each player, and these are color coded because it'll help us in the video here tell who's who in the actual game. With your help, we'll be making a set of miniatures that'll just be miniatures that will be sized and shaped so that they can work with role-playing games. So I've got a couple of stand-in miniatures here from my miniatures collection that are going to be kind of helping us demonstrate that. So I'll get back to those in a second. You've got portal tokens. So these are going to be marking the portals on the boards. So the board has this nice little spot that says a portal. When we're playing, that'll start there on that portal spot. Okay, for our cards, we've got, these are setup cards. So they basically just tell you where each of the piles is going to go. So you've got a draw pile and a discard pile. And then you've got rule pile and a victory pile. These are for the cards, and I'll explain that in a second. And then you have your layout pile. So for our cards, the yellow cards here are our layout cards. They're going to be telling us how the board is set up. It's going to change every time you play. So that's kind of a neat part of it. So that'll tell us where the boards are going to go when we're ready to play. You've got the goal of the game is to win these victory cards, these green cards. So each of the green cards has kind of a objective for you to try to accomplish before the other players accomplish it. So when those get drawn, they'll go on top of that victory card pile right there. And then we have our pink rule cards, which are going to change the way the game works. So it might affect your pieces, it might affect how they move, might affect the boards or the other players. So there's lots of different things that can happen with the pink rule cards. They will also be drawn onto the rule pile. And we'll get to more on how all that functions later in the next video. Our blue cards are action cards, and these are things that happen to you or your pieces or the other player or the board one time, and then they're done. The rule cards stay out, and these blue cards will be happening just one time, and then they'll be done. So that's all of our components. The actual game will also come with, right now you can tell the players by their colors. In the actual game, we'll have these colored bases for each player, and then the miniatures will fit down inside. So here's that miniature from that other game there again. Sit down inside there like that, and then you'll be able to move them and point them and use them like that. So pretty much any of your standard sized fantasy miniatures fit down in that base there. And so that's how it'll work with the miniatures that we're actually creating with our Kickstarter campaign. For now, if it comes to it, we've just got plastic markers that we can put under. For instance, if this orange piece for some reason went to the blue player, then we'd put a blue piece of plastic under it so you could tell who it belonged to there. But we'll get to more into that a little bit later. So we've got everything we need to set up. So we're going to go ahead and get that set up. I'm going to leave the pieces where they are because when you set up in front of each player, there'll be an area that's called the wait, and that essentially just means the place where pieces are when they start before they get onto the game. Okay, so I'm going to set my blue and pink cards aside for a second. I'm going to need my yellow layout cards and my green victory cards. So I can take this time if I want to put out my different cards here. So there's my layout pile. Like so. Here's my rules and my victories. Discard and draw. We're going to run out of room, but that's okay. I'm sure you can imagine where a discard pile is and where a draw pile is. So we always need one victory card in play. So before we lay out any boards, I'm going to shuffle these up and draw one. And this will go onto the victory card pile. So there's my first one. It's going to be there. The rest of these green guys will go with my blue rule cards and my pink rule cards and my blue action cards, and that'll be shuffled together into the draw pile. So I can do that now. I'll shuffle those now. Okay, so that's my draw pile. Imagine that these got really well shuffled. We won't be drawing in this video, so I'm just going to set them there on the draw pile. Okay, so now we're ready for actual boards. So player one is going to have a pretty easy job. They're going to just set their board out like so. And then the purple portal token is going to go on the designated square. The king always goes on the portal. And then the queen and one pawn also start in play. And those can go any square adjacent to these this king, or I'm sorry, the portal. So since player one doesn't know what the board's going to be yet, he doesn't really know how to defend best. So there's drawbacks and benefits for being player one. You get to go first, but you don't necessarily know where player two is going to be. So player one's all set. He's got his portal, his king, his queen, and one pawn. Now player two, our orange player, is going to draw a layout card. And then you make the boards match. So here, player one is always the A player. And if you had a third player, player one would still be A. There's an A and a B for the boards. Here's my second board. I'm going to make it match. So you can look where the portals are. I'm going to make it match the portals on the card. And that is going to be what our board looks like for our gameplay. So I'm going to set this in the discard pile. Alright, so now orange player is going to put their portal again on the marked square. King goes on the portal. Now player two has a little bit more information. He can place his queen and one pawn knowing that player one is down over here. So he might put his queen there and his pawn there. And there's lots of different strategies on how you're going to set up, but it won't affect you too much the first couple of times you play there. Alright, so we've got two players. The boards are set up. They've each got their three pieces in place. If there was a third player, he'd draw another layout card, and he would try to make it match that board with player one. So if we did that real quick, here's my player one board. And this is a good example because what do you do if they overlap? In this case, it would overlap over the top of this one. There's a little arrow on the yellow card here that tells you which direction to move until you're no longer overlapping. So then the board would look something like this. But like I said, for our demonstration, we're going to be just going with the two-player version. And we are all set up and ready to go. So we'll see you in our next video on the how to do the gameplay.